India recently emerged as the top populous countries on the planet. It recently surpassed the around first populous country China after 3 centuries. It means that after 3 centuries, India regained its status as the most populous country on the earth surface. So a strange word is India is one of the oldest civilization. However, India is one of the youngest populous country on the earth surface. Not only it is the highest populous country, it is the youngest populous country. This is what more important point here. So the most important question regarding the India's demographic dividend or the demography is whether this highest population on the earth surface is a boon or bane to India. This is the most important question. Of course, it has been a question since decades, since independence. However, now after the India become the most populous countries on the earth surface, this question again came to the forefront. So now India's population, whether it is a bane or boon to India. But as far as the present economic trend and growth pattern and India's aspirations, high aspirations, etc., it is the biggest boon to the India. It is the biggest boon. In fact, it is the biggest opportunity to India to rejuvenate itself, to regain its last status of the greatest nation, economical power of the globe. So it is the time to restore itself. It is the time to regain itself. It is the time to rejuvenate itself. Now India is fortunately on that momentum. India is fast moving towards to regaining its last status. So India, after 3 centuries, India re-emerged as the most populous nation on the earth surface by beating China. So according to United Nations Population Fund, its population now, as of now, its population is 1.427 million, whereas Chinese population is 1.425, only 2 million population difference. However, India is adding around 177 million per every decade, whereas China, it is adding only 77 million. So India, in fact, a little bit of a worrying factor also. For every 1 decade, for every 10 years, India is adding one Brazil. For every 10 years, India is adding one Brazil. For every year, India is adding almost one Australia. So India's population, 1.427 million, is more than the remaining top 8 countries, excepting China, remaining top 8 countries of most populous countries on the earth surface. It is more than the 2 to 3 continents together. This is what the India's population. Its geographical extent is only 2.4% geographical extent, whereas population is around in between the 17 and 18% of the global population. Where is the strength, or where is the source to feed such a huge population? It is a more important thing that India's strength lies in its geography. India's strength lies in its geography. If you look at the India geographical extent, is out of the around 3.2 million square kilometer area, is around 70% of the geographical area is suitable for the agriculture. It means that 70% of area is arable land, suitable for the agriculture. And also world average annual rainfall is only 83 centimeters, whereas India's average annual rainfall is 118 centimeters. It's around 50% more than the world average annual rainfall. So in fact, this is in terms of the water sources, in terms of the extent, plains, and fertility of the soils, and in terms of its long history, and in terms of its huge population and the traditional agriculture pattern. And in fact, this is the longest uninterrupted civilization as giving the legacy of the agriculture tradition. That's why India is one of the richest agriculture system. That's why it is able to feed such a huge population since immemorial without any interruption. That's why India is a living civilization. So India's livingness lies in its geography, its culture. It's the most important thing. So now it's a question is whether India can survive with a largest population on the earth surface. Yes, whether it is India can survive or not, this is the question. Now, if you're going to get into this point analysis, most important, look at the present population trend. Now the thing is demographic dividend. So Indians are boosting themselves that India is gained the demographic dividend. Recently, I have gone through this one essay of this Al Jazeera report. So Al Jazeera is creating this demographic dividend is a misconception in India. Okay, various reports also, various analysts also accusing of India's huge population, whereas Indians are boosting themselves that India is going to become the world's largest economy by 2000, second largest economy by 2047, that is India at 100, by beating the almost present Japan, Germany and even United States of America, these top 2, 3, 4 economies respectively. So India is going to become the second largest economy behind China by 2047, that is India at 100. So by utilizing, by exploiting, by harnessing this demographic dividend, that is the India's claim. So now we have to analyze whether it is correct or not. So if you look at the India's economic growth phase, so India is growing. India is fastest growing economy on the earth surface now. So by beating China again. So it is not a small feat. It is a huge, it is a enormous, it is a super feat on the part of the India. Since if you look at this, since last 75 years, India's economic growth pattern. Earlier it started its journey as an elephant. Now its elephant is more faster than the dragon, China and Asian tigers, etc., etc. So it's a beautiful and it's a really commendable task on the part of India's policymakers. So if you look at the demographic dividend, India's demographic dividend, according to United Population Fund or on the part of various analysis, India's demographic dividend started in 2001 and it will be in force up to 2051 to 2061, which means India's demographic dividend will be in force 2001 to 2061, is around 5 to 6 decades. It's a huge. According to the demographers like Malthus and Notestein and Damson, both propounded the demographic transition theory. According to this transition theory, every country's demography is passing through 4 stages. So now, according to this demographic transition theory of Damson and Notestein, India is entered into 3rd stage of its demographic transition. So 3rd stage, the first stage is high birth rate and high death rate. So slow growth of population. Second stage is highest birth rate and declining death rate. That's why the second stage is known as the explosive state of the population. Now India has been passed through this second stage, completed its journey. Now it is entered into 3rd stage. If you look at the 3rd stage, according to this demographic transition theory, 3rd stage can be defined as a declining birth rate and low death rate, which means declining population growth rate. Whereas the 4th stage is low death rate and low birth rate, slow population growth. That's what these Western European countries and Japanese and Scandinavian countries, etc., even China also. China is also entered into 4th stage. That's why it is demographic dividend has already over Chinese. Whereas India's demographic dividend, that the 3rd stage of demographic transition theory, just started. So it will be in force, it will be in effect until 2051 and 61. So passing this decade since 2001 onwards, now India is going to reach its peakest demographic dividend stage according to United Nations Population Fund by 2041. Okay, I told you at the outset that India is the youngest populous country, whereas the oldest civilization and the youngest population country. So youngest population country means that India's average population age is 28.5 years. So it's this working age population, that is working age is 15 to 64. Working age population is 70%, 68 to 70%. That means in numbers, in terms of numbers, this is a whopping 900 million population. 900 million working population is there in India, in Indian subcontinent, in India especially. This 900 million population, do you know that 900 million population is more than the combined population of North America and European continent put together. So this is what amazing numbers of working population. The present working population is 900 million, 90 crore. It will, by 2030, India will add another 10 million population to this working population. By 2031, India will have 100 million, 1000 million population, or 1 billion working age population. Forget about the total population. Working age population is 1 billion by 2031. It means according to economists. So they are describing this 1 billion or 1000 million working age population as a army of labor army in India, which accounts for 25 to 30% of the labor force of the globe by 2031. So it's not surprising that how much they contribute to India's growth process. It has already taken take-off stage. Now India is the fastest growing economy. Its demographic dividend is reached to peakest by 2031. And further weakness by 2041, this demographic dividend. So anybody, it is not surprising to estimate that India can maintain its growth momentum, and further it can improve its growth momentum by two digits of the GDP growth rate. Like what China registered last 3 decades. So within 3 decades, unprecedentedly, China emerged as the second largest economy in terms of PPP, first largest economy by beating the United States of America. So now India entered into what China did for the last 3 decades. So coming 3 decades is India's decades. So coming 21st century is India's century only because of the demographic dividend. So this is what the demographic dividend. What do you mean by demographic dividend? No need of any complex terms. Demographic dividend, according to United Nations Population Fund, is simple terms. In simple terms, that accelerated economic growth and developmental opportunities by positive changes in the age structure or the demographic structure of a country. Now, in terms of the age pattern, age structure, that is 15 to 65 years age population is increasing by reducing the children and aged population, that is more than 65 years aged population, and children 0 to 14 years age population. These two things are reducing, whereas the 15 to 64 years age population is increasing in India. This is what the demographic dividend. This is the demographic dividend is an occasion, a historical occasion for any nation in its demographic history, and this is passing through. Whenever this country is passing through this favorable demographic pattern, favorable demographic age structure, it will have huge opportunities in terms of its economic growth and developmental opportunities. Through this kind of age, now India has been passing through. Its journey started in 2001, already passed 2.5 decades. So further 3 to 4 decades, India will be in this stage. This is the stage where India can restore, rejuvenate what it has lost in its history. That's what is the greatest economy. According to Angus Madison, out of the 99% of the human history, India enjoyed as the largest economy, superpower, economic superpower. Now it is an occasion because of on account of only demographic dividend, India has a chance to catch up this historic stage. So now it is the India's, according to demographic dividend, demographic history of the earth, it is the India's century. The 21st century is India's century. Now the question is how to harness this huge demographic dividend. So by 2030, by 2031 or 3031, India will have 25% of the labor force of the globe. So unless it harnessed this population demographic dividend, do you know what would happen? The simple thing is, in other words, the demographic dividend is a double-edged sword. If you utilize it, it will be greater beneficial for this economy and will emerge as a great economy. If you could not utilize it, it will be counterproductive. It can destroy even the civilization, the existence of civilization itself. You know that the waste population is always danger for any nation. So India has to harness this demographic dividend. So simple terms, in economic terms, that in geographical and economical terms, that since 2001, if you look at the India's policy making, that is governance making, India since 99 onwards, the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Program, and Ayushman Bharat National Rural Health Mission, Digital India, then the NHDP, various components of NHDP, and which means that the social infrastructure program and or else social investment program, and also this physical infrastructure. These are all programs aimed at only single aim, that is to exploit and to harness this demographic dividend, if you look at it, in other words. So every steps taken by the Indian government or state governments, only single aim is to exploit this demographic dividend only. Okay, this is what the thing of India. India has already moving in this direction to exploit this demographic dividend. Otherwise, it cannot become the great power. So India is an aspiring power. It wants to surpass the coming in the, by 2031, it wants to surpass the Japan and Germany, fourth and third largest economies. It wants to become third largest economy by 2027 or 2030. By 2047, it wants to become the second largest economy by beating the present superpower, United States of America. Yes, it's possible, but the only thing is, provided that if you utilize the demographic dividend, the present in India now. It is an historic occasion, I told you at outset. It is an historic occasion because every country is passing through demographic dividend stage. It is also known as demographic wind, or else a golden era, golden age, demographic window or golden age. So India is at the midst of this golden age, demographic dividend stage. So it has to utilize. So I told you that India has, in order to utilize this demographic dividend, India has been formulating various strategies, socio and physical infrastructure strategies, and its policy making, and its third generation economic reforms, and various infrastructure programs, and great industrial corridors, infrastructure program, Sagarmalai project. Everything is to harness the demographic dividend, huge labor force. Okay, with its cheap labor force and a huge market, in terms of the Prime Minister Modi's this coining the term, Prime Minister Modi coined 4Ds concept. 4Ds means number one is, first D is democracy, second D is its diversity, third D is its demographic dividend, fourth D is its demand. It's as far as its democracy, we have the good constitution to rule this population. It's good, it's very important for the demographic dividend. We have already mature democracy. If you look at the democracies of the earth, we have one of the greatest constitution, and under which we have been surviving as a largest democracy. Okay, democracy, one of the greatest strength of India. Second one is its diversity, huge. This demographic dividend is not a single racial population. It's not a simple. India is a vast country, geographically highly diversified, and almost all seven races of the earth is in India. So huge diversity is always biologically, it is a rich for any nations. Okay, huge biological diversity is there out of this demographic dividend. The third is its demographic dividend, huge labor force, which means the cheap labor force is attracting, luring the investments and technology and MNCs from the other nations in a globalized area. It is a magnet. This huge population, cheap labor force especially, is acting as a magnet to attract huge investment and this technology, etc. So huge, this opportunities, growth opportunities will further enhance in the coming decades. So another thing is its demand. A huge population, 25% of the workforce, means they are workforce, they are working age population. Workers is always having the huge incomes. These incomes will enhance this purchasing power, consumption capacity. This huge consumption capacity is there. That's why all MNCs are looking at India. So it is unsatisfied, untapped potential market for the global MNCs. For example, if you look at the United States of America, in US, for every 1,000 population, there are 900 cars are there. For every 1,000 population, 900 cars are there in United States of America. If you look at India, for every 1,000 population, only 10 cars are there. Means there are remaining 990 population with increasing their incomes, with increasing global economy. So their capacity, their consumption capacity is increasing. So we have 990 population out of the 1,000 population are ready to buy the cars if you compare to United States of America. That's why in all MNCs, these are coming out of this already satisfied United States of developed markets and Japan. Now they are coming to India. This is an untapped potential, a huge market. That's why Apple is establishing it. It's one of the greatest center out of this Foxconn, China. And all this Tesla, every company is coming to India because of its huge consumption population. That is what the demand in terms of the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Modi. So we have the demand, huge cheap labor force. This is attracting everything. So behind this one, so India should have the great strategy, one of the good strategy of the world, or else in simply ease of doing business or good governance. These are all these things establish an ambience, an atmosphere to harness this huge demographic dividend. Then only India will be converted into India will be transformed into a highly developed nation by 2047 by surpassing United States of America. You know, the present India's economy is $3.5 trillion, the fifth largest economy. By 2047, according to unanimously by the all this surveying organization like Moody's, S&P and others, IMF, etc. are unanimously saying that India is going to become $45 trillion economy by surpassing United States of America by 2047. That is India at 100. By celebrating its 100 years the Independence Day, India will be emerged as a $45 trillion economy by surpassing present United States of America behind the China. So this is the biggest opportunity this demographic dividend is offering to India to become superpower. So this is the aspiration of India as well. So it is an occasion to convert this developed nation as a highly developed nation.